Hi there. Are you tired of thinking for yourself? Tired of charting your own course through life? Free will got you down? Then you need advertising. Advertising will slowly drain you of your independence, eroding your self-worth like waves over a sandcastle. Every day, the average person takes in between 1,000 and 3,000 advertisements and brand names. Seems high, right? That's because it is. All these ads let you know that you're fat, uncool, unhappy, underdressed, and just a general loser. Luckily, advertising will supply you with solutions to all your problems. Solutions that will actually just keep you docile, malleable, and mindlessly obsessed with consumption in every sense of the word. Well, except the old-timey sense when it meant tuberculosis. That would be weird. So try advertising today. You don't have much of a choice.
Hi there, I'm Darren Howard.
And I'm Robert Nisbeth.
That was awesome.
That was great. I mean, it really is the most honest advertising I've ever seen.
You know, actually, I saw a Coke advertisement that comes close to that one.
Yeah.
Okay, a real Coke ad. We'll see if we can run that one for you later on in the show. But right now, we do have two quick 15-minute segments talking about propaganda.
At our counter to us.
Yes, which is, of course, intelligence and using the one brain cell floating around inside my head.
Now, last month, the U.S. government decided, in their wisdom, to open the 9/11 Memorial Museum.
Okay.
The reaction has been mixed.
Two quick clips right here. You be the judge.
Now, the National September 11th Memorial Museum in New York was dedicated today. Of course, it was a very somber, emotional scene. President Obama and others took the opportunity to remind everyone that we will never forget. But in actuality, what this museum wants us never to forget is their version of what happened that day. One of the rooms specifically is dedicated solely to pictures of the hijackers, and it spins the tale of how these extremists came to pull off this devastating attack. But what is missing from the museum, of course, are the fuzzy details surrounding 9/11. These are, of course, the details that nobody dares discuss, lest you be called a conspiracy theorist. There was no room dedicated to the puzzling scenario surrounding 9/11, like the magic passport that was found blocks away from the debris that somehow the terrorist was able to fling out the window of the airplane before it flew into the World Trade Center and exploded from so high above the streets of New York, and they magically found the passport that helped them identify the hijackers. There was no section in the museum that shows the non-existent plane hitting the Pentagon. There were no pictures of the Pennsylvania crash site, where for the only time in recorded history, a plane flew into and under the ground, leaving very little debris. No bodies were ever recovered from the site. Really? But see, that was more than a decade ago, and the government is still just wasting our taxpayer dollars without a care.
It is a day Americans will forever have etched in our minds, and almost 13 years later, the museum to honor those victims of September 11th and the first responders is about to open. But there is controversy yet again at Ground Zero. This time, it centers around a gift shop located inside the memorial set to open to the public tomorrow. Some people are upset over the idea of profiting from their loved ones' final resting places, but organizers of this museum, they say that covering the museum's cost of operation will require that revenue generated from the gift shop. Let me bring in 9/11 first responder and former NYPD patrolman James Ryder. James, it's an honor to have you on. Welcome. Do we as a nation need keepsakes from that day?
There are no bodies buried at the Vietnam Memorial, the World War I or the World War II memorials. This is a gravesite that they decided, without the input of the families, where those bodies would be buried. The bodies that my team tried very hard to identify and could not. So that is not like any other place, and it is not a war memorial. Don't tell me that terrorism is war. Terrorism is very different. This is not like any other place and should be treated that way.
You went to the museum last week, but you say you will never go back. Tell me why.
I will not. because it's a place of business. It's a conglomerate. It's a corporation. It is not a place of memory, a place of solace. It is not a place to go and show regard. It's run by civilians who are business people. If you're going to profit from 9/11, that money should go to the families. Maybe the park police or the parks department should be running that place, or maybe the parts around that place, and have the ability to save money. I don't want to call it what you're calling it. From now on, I'm just calling it that place because it's disrespectful.
So the family's got a point.
They do indeed. You know, if they're going to be making money off the 9/11 tragedy, the money should go to the families.
And you know, it's kind of ridiculous, a gift shop that just, it's offensive, okay? Use your brain cells on this one, you know, and don't listen to the excuse people who say they've got an excuse for nonsense like this, you know.
And every once in a while, a politician comes out and tells the truth.
Oh. Say it's not so.
John Kerry did it, but he didn't think he was going to be, you know, on tape about it.
Yeah, so this awesome clip from Honesty in Reporting.
Well, folks, in between its coverage of racist NBA owners and ranchers, the corporate media had just enough time to viscerally react to Secretary of State John Kerry dropping a big A-bomb.
At a closed-door meeting in Washington Friday, Kerry said if Middle East peace is not achieved, Israel could become an apartheid state. That remark triggered a storm of criticism.
This is beyond something requiring an apology. I think this is a resigning type statement.
That's right. Anchors, pundits, and lawmakers alike have been outraged over John Kerry daring to compare Israel to apartheid in South Africa. Let me break down the reality. Israel is already an apartheid state. Israel has a permit system which restricts travel for ethnic Palestinians in the West Bank, limiting where they can live unless they obtain permits from the Israeli government. In regard to the limited mobility of Palestinians, former U.S. President Jimmy Carter said in 2006 that, quote, when Israel occupies territory deep within the West Bank and connects the 200 or so settlements with each other with a road, and then prohibits the Palestinians from using that road, or in many cases even crossing it, this perpetuates even worse instances of apartness or apartheid than we witnessed even in South Africa. But hey, we have to be careful, not get carried away and start comparing Israel to South Africa. But I think it's about time we call a spade a spade. Call it segregation, call it racism, call it what you will. But institutionalized discrimination and systematic oppression over any group based on race is the definition of apartheid.
So wow, he had to backpedal.
Well, what's really funny is, you know, they're all outraged that he used the A word.
Yes, yes.
They didn't actually talk about the facts that Israel does represent an apartheid government.
Sort of like the Canadian Harper government. We have an apartheid state in Canada right now that isn't talked about very much. But coming up in a future show, we're going to talk about the way the Supreme Court of BC is starting to turn that apartheid state back.
Yeah, it looks like they might be giving our democracy back.
Yes, democracy. Well, there's an interesting concept.
Yeah.
We're searching for evidence on that one. But of course, we have the Canadian Action Plan to, you know, point us in the wrong direction. Talking about going in the wrong direction.
Yeah, apparently recently a directive from the White House has surfaced. It says that the U.S. government is allowed to attack its own citizens in the event of civil unrest.
Isn't that, well, they had an 1812 thing about that before. Let's take a look at this now.
A Defense Department document from the Obama administration outlines the president's authority for attacks on American citizens. Directive 3025.18, titled Defense Support of Civil Authorities, provides authorization for the Commander-in-Chief to order military strikes against civilians. These include, but are not limited to, the use of drones for surveillance. The directive, buried in the public DoD database, was first brought to the attention of the public by the Washington Times. It gives the president the power to order military forces to quell large-scale, unexpected civil disturbances. The directive also extends the same authority to kill mass numbers of Americans to military commanders when authorization by the president is impossible and duly constituted local authorities are unable to control the situation. Large riots and demonstrations are not the only condition under which this authority could be used by federal forces. The directive states that, quote, federal action, including the use of federal military forces, is authorized when necessary to protect the federal property or functions. The paper clearly states the authorization is for use of military forces against civilians in times of unrest. Even with direct action from U.S. military forces, the directive provides military-grade weapons to local law enforcement. The document provides the president with the sole authority to order attacks to quell disturbances resulting in disruption to federal functions or property. The defense secretary is allotted these same powers in case of violent unrest.
Okay, sorry, spoiler alert, 1812. I was just thinking of when the Canadians invaded the States and burned down their White House.
Yeah.
Anywho, no, I mean, Civil War, okay. You have to take a look at things like the Patriot Act, the NDAA.
The authorization to use military force.
Yes, so they've got this blanket. They have the NDAA, the NDRA down in the States right now. There's no constitution down there whatsoever, no protection for their citizens. And now, of course, Obama has the right to do what he did overseas, right in his own sovereign land.
And of course, the recent heavily redacted document that came out about the reasons they could do it, use drone strikes on American citizens overseas, is beginning a lot of play in the media as well.
Talking about reasons why they do things, coming up in the next segment, we are going to be talking about some concerns the U.S. State Department has because the news and the truth is getting out.
And of course, we're going to talk about how the rich think we should thank them.
Ah, yes, thanking the rich with a 2x4. I'm Darren Howard.
And I'm Robert Nisbet.
We're going to be talking about that and more as our look at propaganda continues. We'll be right back after this short lack of commercial messages.
We think first of vague words that are synonyms for progress and pair them with footage of a high-speed train. Science is doing lots of stuff that may or may not have anything to do with us. See how this guy in a lab coat holds up a beaker? That means we do research. Here's a picture of DNA. There are a shitload of people in the world, especially in India. See how we're part of the global economy? Look at those farmers in China. But we also do business in the USA, or want you to think we do. Check out this wind energy thing in Indiana. And this blue-collar guy with dirt on his face. Also, we care about the environment, loosely. Here's some powerful rushing water and people planting trees. Our policies could be related to these panoramic views of Costa Rica. In today's high-speed environment, stop-motion footage of a city at night with cars turning quickly makes you think about doing things efficiently and time passing. Lest you think we're a faceless entity, look at all these attractive people. Here's some of them talking and laughing, and close-ups of hands passing canned goods to each other in a setting that evokes community service. Equality, innovation, honesty, and advancement are all words we choose from a list. Our prophets are awe-inspiring, like this guy who's looking up and pointing at a skyscraper or a kite while smiling and explaining something to his child. Using a specific ratio of Asian people to black people to women to white men, we want to make sure we represent your needs and interests, or at least a version of your skin color in our ads. Did we put a baby in here? What about an ethnic old man whose wrinkled smile represents the happiness and wisdom of the poor?